unearthly bad pausing, actually, compared to what I'm used to. That was not even nearly enough speed anyway. The Wind Waker HD. That probably wouldn't have worked. A brutal hard speed game. Beaten in 51 minutes and 34 seconds. In March 2019, it spreads the time loss more evenly. The world record for Wind Waker HD Any percent was 54 minutes and 15 seconds. Today, October 2020, the world record has fallen to 51 minutes. The very first sub 52. In Discord. If you have not heard of the Wind Waker HD, you must know one thing. This game is brutal, very difficult, unforgiving, physically demanding, and gorgeous. My name is mralberto23, and welcome to Wind Waker HD Any percent. I'm running out of time, I can't. To start off the run, we will be performing a trick that is considered the hardest trick in the game and possibly one of the hardest in all of 3D Zelda games. This trick is known as the manual super swim. When entering the water, Link can turn around, and whenever he turns around, he gains -3 units of speed, and this is in the backwards direction. If we were to chain together frame-perfect turnarounds, we could infinitely gain speed because there is no cap for negative speed in the water. However, this game runs at 30 frames per second, and no human could flick back and forth 30 times per second, for if you are just slightly slower, you can lose all of your speed in a very short amount of time, and so we pause buffer. So every frame-perfect pause makes Link gain -3 units of speed. However, if we were to pause one frame late, we would not gain or lose any speed because on the first frame we gain speed and on the second frame we lose that same speed, thus breaking even. If we pause one frame early, the game will not read this as pausing the game, and instead it will eat this input, causing the game to remain unpaused until we press the start button again. Many hours must be put into this trick to increase the accuracy of our pausing. At the time of this video, my pausing had gotten to the point where I could 90% of the time hit frame-perfect pausing. In addition to the difficulty of hitting frame-perfect many times in a row, we must also have a much faster pausing rhythm, because in this game, the pause menu stays up for as little as 2 frames and leaves in 7 frames, which means you can pause 3 times per second. After pausing for 1 minute straight, we have reached 550 units of speed, which is enough for us to enter a type of camera state where if we hold directly up, Link will go behind the camera in 1 frame, and then the camera will flip, causing us to be able to continue holding up, and he will gain speed every single frame, the maximum speed gaining rate. Fortunately, my pausing was very good, but unfortunately on the way to Roost Island, I hit neutral on the analog stick, which makes Link leave his swimming animation, causing him to lose a fraction of his speed. Luckily, the speed loss was not substantial enough for me to justify a reset. However, I will begin behind due to this error. The first one was okay, the second one wasn't. Alas, we have reached Roost Island, which is our destination. You're a good girl. Roost Island does not have much interesting for the beginning for a casual player. However, for us, it contains a very important item locked in the dungeon. The Grappling Hook. The Grappling Hook is the most overpowered item in the Wind Waker HD, for it allows us to perform a trick known as the item slide. In order to obtain the Grappling Hook, we will have to obtain the bottle and then go into the dungeon and complete half of the dungeon swordless. For as it turns out in this game, they put pots and rocks in rooms, allowing us to be able to complete the entire dungeon swordless. It is likely that early in the development of this game, the game had more of a stealth mechanic to it, but later they added the sword back in. And so because we can pick up enemy items, we can defeat enemies with their own weapons, and so we can complete every single room swordless. Until we can item slide, we must do rolls, which is the fastest movement mechanic on land. Rolling gives you 26 speed, however, item sliding later will allow us to gain up to infinite speed exponentially. It's it's not very nice to say, Bowser. Can't disagree with Toad on this one. I can't really. Though it is simple, basic movement with just rolling is actually quite difficult to pull off optimally. We try to avoid bonking walls as much as possible, which loses about 1 second per bonk, but also we must make sure that our rolls are tight and in a great direction for each roll. We also need to cut corners as tightly as possible, and roll on as straight as line as possible. In this speedrun, I got a few frames off of my best on this split. Now that we have the delivery bag, we will be performing the quest to obtain that bottle from Medley, which is mandatory to enter Dragon Roost Cavern. In theory, we can possibly get another bottle skipping this side quest by going to the Bomb Island submarine, which if you defeat all the enemies in the submarine, it will reward you with a bottle and a chest. However, in order to reach Bomb Island, we need to perform a manual super swim as in the beginning, but then we must perform another super swim from the submarine to Dragon Roost, thus adding in a second manual super swim. When I time this, the manual super swim must be very, very fast in order for it to save time, because for RTA, we cannot flick back and forth, which loses a great amount of time compared to Taz. The task can flick back and forth every single frame because it is not done by a human. However, because we are pause buffering, we lose a substantial amount of time, but I timed that if we were to get the equivalent of a 430 manual super swim or lower, we could actually save 10 to 20 seconds. In future speedruns, I plan on incorporating this trick. However, for now, because I do not want to deal with the RNG in the submarine and the difficulty of a second super swim, I decided to leave off incorporating it for now in exchange for consistency. People arrive, Sub-9. Medley is cute. 70% two-framers. Sounds about right. It sounds like me when I first started. But you'll get it, for sure. This is a 24. You may also notice that the language is Italian. This is the fastest language in the game. Demon, an earlier speedrunner of Wind Waker HD, decided to time by frame every single text language in this game and every text box, and found that Italian was the fastest language. You see, Japanese would have been the fastest, which it is in the original Wind Waker. However, when they designed this game, they sped up every single text box by 4 times the amount of usual, except for Japanese, which was left at its original speed. And so, Italian, which had been the second fastest language, now became the fastest language because it was the fastest language that had been sped up by 4x. And so, Japanese is now half the speed of Italian, and is now the slowest language in this game, because it was not sped up by 4 times. not going to get the fastest time. You're not going to get the fastest pausing time if you don't pause faster. Now we're entering the Dragon Roost Cavern. Unfortunately, I make an error here. I missed the bomb throw on the second statue, which loses about 4 seconds. However, it was not substantial enough for me to reset. Did that just happen? Cool. With a second try bomb throw, we enter the cavern. I'm so mad. Can't believe that just happened. As soon as we enter the cavern, we must go as fast as possible because there is a lava cycle we need to make. The timer for the lava cycle starts as soon as we enter the dungeon and will be seen later in the first outside room. When we climb a ladder, we want to beat a lava pillar from forming, and if we have to wait for the lava pillar to despawn, it takes about 5 extra seconds. You can't even just slow at this point? Yeah. Much care was put into the movement in this dungeon. There are many tiny optimizations that may not save much time, but in the course of this 8-minute split, they add up to a quite substantial amount of seconds of time save. This includes side hops, holding target before turning, several rolls that you may not think to do, rolling off of edges to grab something faster, and more. Here we can roll through the boulder while it is exploding to reach the door quicker. With a careful camera angle, we skipped the cutscene of that lava platform forming. But a lot of it's muscle memory. You could have Unfortunately, this dungeon also has quite a bit of RNG in it, because enemy movements are RNG, and we must rely on a good pattern. Here, the bokoblin could have hit me, which would have broken my pot, and I would have had to pick up another one. Fortunately, he did not hit me, and so that is perfect RNG. A lot of it's just habitual, do the same thing over and over again. With only minor errors up until this point, we will beat the lava cycle by quite a bit. Thus, a great start to this dungeon. Yeah, no, most of speedrunning is not reaction time based. Like, another small optimization that we will do in this dungeon will be bouncing bombs off of objects. This includes this wall right here. The bomb timer is greatly shortened when it bounces off of something, so when we bounce it off the wall, it will shorten the timer and decrease the time it takes for it to explode, saving about 1 second. Here where we roll off of the edge of this block, which is faster than climbing normally. And the same goes for this block as well, rolling off the edge. Alright, I can be ahead. I can be ahead here. Theory for delivery bags give for tasks. Another optimization in this room was picking up the small pot and throwing it into the big pot so that it can break it. This is faster than picking up the larger pot, because the larger pot takes longer to pick up and longer to throw, as well as the fact that the sticks bounce for longer. Thus it saves a couple of seconds to perform this instead of picking up the large pot. In this room is the very first fight in the dungeon. We must pick up the sword from this first bokoblin and use it to defeat all of the bokoblins in this room. We also try to double hit the bokoblins, which is faster than getting single hits. Fortunately, my fight here is great, and I get a perfect fight in this room for the second two bokoblins. Yeah. But that requires island hopping. In this next room, we will be performing a trick to jump faster to the door after forming this pillar. We will throw the pot into the left edge of the geyser and wait as long as possible to throw it, so that when we jump, we can jump directly to the door, which is a faster route. Yeah, that was a good fight. Finally, we will side up with the bomb, which is faster than normally walking with the bomb because we cannot roll.
This can actually be pretty
and
good.
Throw it, and now we have entered the outside room.
That was a pretty fast room. This can be like a 1705.
This outside room, unfortunately, does not go perfectly as planned. However, it is fast enough for me to save a substantial amount of time over my previous run, ending up being about 8 seconds ahead.
Alright, bad fight. Bad fight. I literally just can't hit these guys. So bad.
And with the final blow, we have now completed Jagnu's Cavern. We can talk to Medley and obtain the Grappling Hook. After obtaining the Grappling Hook, which is the reason we came to this island in the first place, we can save work back to Outset because that is our default spawn location because we have not triggered any of the other save warp flags in this game. This is faster than backtracking in the dungeon and leaving normally. Now that we have the Grappling Hook, we can use it to perform many sequence breaks. This is made possible because the Grappling Hook allows for first-person movement. In this game, they programmed in first-person movement, but they made a mistake. You see, they accidentally multiplied Link's movement equation by 1.2, allowing you to multiply his speed by 1.2 every single frame if we are holding the ESS position. And so we can use it to super swim. Our first destination will be a Quiver Island. We must obtain the Quiver Upgrade by clipping in, which is very precise and very difficult, and I nailed it first try in this run.
I shouldn't have even moved. I should have just instantly gone for it. This might gold.
When we watch this cutscene, we obtain the Quiver Upgrade. This gives us a 60 quiver. However, we do not have the bow yet, but it will still carry over once we have the bow, because it is still kept track of. The reason we must obtain the Quiver Upgrade is that we will be shooting light arrows at Pumpkin later. The bow that we get will be the light arrow bow, and unfortunately this bow does not actually give you arrows, and so our arrow count will be 0 if we do not obtain this Quiver Upgrade. Next we will be heading to Forsaken Fortress 1. Forsaken Fortress 1 is located on a map that is not on the overworld, so we cannot actually super swim there. However, because we do not have a sword, if Link ever encounters a moblin that has a lantern in his hand, we can get caught by that moblin and be sent to Forsaken Fortress 1 jail, which is on a separate map.
Alright, bad swim, whatever.
Fortunately, these moblins in the submarine are easily accessible for us to be thrown into jail. Now that we are in the jail cell, we will escape and then beat Forsaken Fortress. The first thing we need to do is trigger the sword, which is actually not automatically triggered when you enter the map. We must go near the area Link climbs up normally by going on the staircase, and then we must use that to trigger the sword. We will be item sliding through Forsaken Fortress 1, which is quite faster than the normal movement. The tricks in this dungeon are quite difficult. We must perform the ladder skip, which has a very precise analog stick direction that works. Fortunately, I get it first try in this run. The ladder skip is required because we do not have the sword, which makes item sliding easier.
Okay.
If I were have to failed that, I could have lost 15 to 20 seconds. However, I got it first try.
Go ahead.
After grappling the Bokoblin to skip the spikes raising cutscene, we can defeat him with the sword and enter the cutscene. The reason we must go to Forsaken Fortress is that we would crash the game later if we had not watched this cutscene, because this cutscene spawns King of Red Lions into the overworld. You see, he was invisible earlier when we watched the Wind Waker cutscene on Dragon Roost Island. However, we cannot have him be invisible for much longer, because later when we go down to Hyrule, we will watch a cutscene where Tetra must get out of the boat. If there is no boat for her to get out of, the game will crash, and thus this cutscene is mandatory to watch.
Alright, here we go. 1, 2.
Here I perform push-ups to show how dominant I am.
5.
Just kidding.
7. 8. 9. 10. Okay. Thank you all for counting with me. Thank you everyone for counting. I appreciate it. Thank you. Some people better at counting than others, but that's okay. We're all a family here, even though some people are a little more special than others. Yo, thanks for the follow. Yo, what's up, Digman? You're shredded. Or are you saying that I shredded? Looking swole. Oh.
Not only does this cutscene make us have the King of Red Lions spawn into the overworld, but it also changes our spawn location to Windfall, and thus, whenever we save warp, we will not go to Outset instead, but we will go to Windfall instead. Guess what just happened? Did you just beat Linkus back? Is that what you did, Kong? Did you just beat Linkus back? The same day? That's what you did, didn't it? Isn't that what you did? What did you get? GG. The next island we must go to is Forest Haven, and this is the final island we must go to before completing the game. The Forest Haven has the leaf. This item is also required for shooting light arrows, in addition to the Quiver Upgrade, because when we obtain the bow from the light arrows chest, it does not give us a magic meter. And so the leaf is the fastest way to obtain a magic meter, because if we do not have magic, we cannot shoot light arrows. We can only shoot regular arrows, because light arrows are a type of elemental arrow.
Was it a 440?
In theory, it is possible to skip obtaining the leaf. However, it requires performing a Puppaganon skip that does not use leaf, and all theoretical RTA viable Puppaganon skip methods all obtain leaf, and thus, until we find a way to skip Puppaganon reliably RTA without leaf, it will remain TAS only.
It'd be pretty tough for him to beat. He said no you. Oh, Tower of the Gods. Was it floor 1 skip?
The cutscene for obtaining the leaf is possible to be skipped, however we do not perform it in this run, we simply watch the cutscene. The reason for this is that the cutscene skip in this game requires dying on the exact same frame of the loading zone to the cutscene triggering. However, we do not have a way to deal ourselves damage. We could get hit by the Chew at the same time we kill it, but that would cause us to die earlier because the Chew has a death animation that it must go through before the loading triggering. And thus, the only way to skip this cutscene that is known currently is with bombs. However, this route skips obtaining bombs because it is actually slower to obtain bombs than it is to skip the cutscene.
Hog, y'all. Alright, this run's very, very good. Actually, this is one of my best runs ever. Hi. Why does no one ever say hi? Bad position. This position's not good. So I'm gonna have to move a little bit before blocking the tree, which loses like a second. Dude. And alas, we are starting to watch the cutscene for spawning Leaf. Unfortunately, we cannot skip this cutscene, so we will simply watch it. After obtaining the leaf, we will have to go and start the sequence of beating the game. There is only one logical sequence known currently to go and beat the game. The first thing we must do is put the game in animation set 2. You see, when you begin Wind Waker, in the original and in the remake, you are in a state known as animation set 1. Animation set 1 is required for early cutscenes to play. Many of these major cutscenes will crash if we are not in animation set 1. However, after watching the cutscene after entering Helmrock's lair, we will put the game in a state known as animation set 2. In animation set 2, early game cutscenes will crash, however late game cutscenes require animation set 2 to play. Thus, it is mandatory to watch the Helmrock cutscene before going to beat the game, because if we were to go enter the Papaganon room, that cutscene would crash, as well as the final cutscene before the end would also crash, and the credits as well, if we had not put the game in animation set 2. Fortunately, triggering animation set 2 is not out of our way, but is actually in our way, because it is actually the best way to get to Hyrule. You see, after watching the Helmrock cutscene, we can perform the Helmrock skip and then enter the door to Ganondorf. And then after watching a cutscene of being rescued by Valoo, we go to Hyrule 2 to find out the secret behind who Tetra actually is. Instead of watching the cutscene seeing who Tetra is, we can then perform the barrier skip, which is the biggest sequence break in this entire run, and then go and defeat the game by going and defeating Papaganon, and then performing the Morph Hover to skip the hook shot, and then fight Ganondorf and defeat the game. This should sub 28, which is crazy. This is faster than the alternative route, which would be going to fight Tower of the Gods. However, we would still have to watch this cutscene, which is mandatory, because if we had tried to go perform barrier skip after Tower of the Gods, the game would crash. And so this is the only route that we know of currently to go beat the game that would not involve some kind of credits warp in theory. Yeah. Second ever sub 28 Leaf. Second ever. To enter the Helmrock's lair, we have a conundrum because we do not have a way to obtain the Skull Hammer, which is required to hammer the peg to enter the lair. We cannot defeat Phantom Ganon to obtain the Skull Hammer because damaging him requires having the Master Sword, and the regular sword or any other weapon does not damage Phantom Ganon. In addition, fighting Phantom Ganon would be quite slow, so instead we will perform an item side clip to go past the door and enter the loading zone. My movement here is quite a pleasure for me to watch. That's not good. I'll have to back that up later. My damage is bad. Dude, go. Be good. Just clip. Come on, clip. Right now. Hello?
After completing the door clip, which was a little slow for me, losing a couple of seconds, we have now entered Helmrock's lair, which is mandatory for defeating the game, as I mentioned.
It's kind of random. Door clip's a little bit random. I got a little bit unlucky with that, but it's fine. This is a very good run.
Shaking off the minimal time loss that I made on this split, we now will look forward to the Helmrock skip. Helmrock is actually quite skippable in this game, with even the glitchless speedrun skipping Helmrock fight. You see, we cannot fight Helmrock because we do not have the Skull Hammer, and even so, fighting Helmrock would be slow anyway. And so what we will do is we will go behind Helmrock and climb up and hold down on the analog stick, causing Link to change his hitbox by turning around, and Helmrock will push him out of bounds. We do not know exactly why this works, but we just know that it works. After going under the floor, we will then pop up on a collision out of bounds of the arena and walk around and then jump to past the spikes and head up to the Ganondorf room.
Knowing what you're doing wrong, because often you'll do something wrong, but you'll literally not know what you're doing wrong. That's frustrating, because you always want to know why a trick failed. And whenever you're running a game, if you always know why a trick failed, you'll know how to adjust and correct it. But at the end of the day, you need to be, you have to hold precise angles. You have to be able to pause frame perfectly. You have to hit frame perfect roll clips. These things just come with time. No matter how hard you try, you just have to press the button on the correct frame or hold the correct angle. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you understand for those. But a lot of tricks, people are doing them wrong, and so when you explain what they're doing wrong, they can adjust and correct it. Also, thanks for the follow. You'll shit your pants and eat them. Oh, fun. Fun. You're gonna bust a nut or straight pop. What are you doing? Optimally, there's one roll clip. Actually, two. Well, DRC, remember? DRC, and then optimally, there's the trial skip is faster to roll clip. Optimally.
And so, we begin the climb of Helmrock's tower. The climb is quite fast with item sliding, as you may notice. And then we will go behind Helmrock and clip past him, as I mentioned. You will also notice I take damage intentionally here. I actually take 2 hits from this spike. Normally I would take 1 hit, but I did a backup because I must get hit twice because I was meant to get hit earlier from another spike, but Link did not take damage for some reason. The reason we must take damage is that later we will be performing a glitch known as zombie hovering, which requires us hitting 0 health. When Link has 0 health, if we perform a jump slash, we can enter the air, and then while in mid-air, Link will actually not finish his animation of jump slashing, and thus he will stay mid-air and enter the falling animation. We can then mash the B button, and if we mash quick enough, we can fight gravity and continuously gain height, because each frame after performing a jump slash mid-air, he will then cancel his animation, allowing us to jump slash again.
Towards the wall,
and so if we mash more than 7.5 times per second, we can gain height, mashing up to a maximum of 15 times per second, because we must alternate between pressing the button and releasing it every frame, and this game runs at 30 frames per second, thus 15 is the fastest we can mash.
I'm on at 51.35 pace. I'm so slow. I think that was my fastest ever EMS as well.
The end of this run is truly mesmerizing. I start off on 51.35 pace and end on 51.34 pace.
It's always great to see new people trying to learn the game.
I thought my golds were quite optimized, but I was proven wrong, as I was able to gold 2 of the last splits in the run. The Papaganon fight went truly amazing, and the hover at the end, I also ended up getting a best on that by 5 seconds.
I am open, by the way. Don't think of it as, I know a lot of people are intimidated. I've been told It's intimidating to ask the world record holder for advice. Don't be intimidated. Like, I am very, very open to helping anyone who needs help. Like, it's not a problem for me. Because I've been...
After watching this cutscene, we'll be performing the most famous glitch in Wind Waker HD and Wind Waker history, as well as one of the holy grails in Zelda speedrun history. In 2017, Grotana discovered the barrier skip. Barrier skip allows us to go past a collision obstacle that prevents us from getting to the end of the game fairly early, for we can get to Hyrule quite early. However, there is an obstacle that prevents us from getting to the last dungeon, which is actually in Hyrule, and the loading zone exists.
Only 3.
The barrier goes all the way around Hyrule and extends quite far up, and it has a damage barrier. The damage barrier is quite easy to get past. If we pull the Windmaker on the very last frame of invulnerability after getting damaged, we can cancel the damage. And then once we were in the damage barrier, we had a problem. We did not know how to get past the second invisible wall after getting past the damage barrier. However, when there is a will, there is a way. And Gertana decided to item slide against the barrier. And for some reason, Link went through the barrier when he was item sliding in the center corner. You see, there are panels that make up the barrier. And when you item slide at a specific angle in between the two panels that meet at the center of the bridge, we can go through a small gap because these are misaligned. And so, when Link goes through this small gap with enough speed, he will pass through it and skip the barrier. This trick is quite precise. There are 2 to the 16th facing angles that Link can face, or around 65,000, and only 15 of them work. That is because this gap is quite small.
Yeah, I saw he submitted the 3D challenge.
As I mentioned, knockback cancel is frame perfect, and I get it first try. Next, we line up the precise angle, which I get very quickly. And then I item slide onto the barrier.
Okay, this has potential to be really fast. I think it's gonna work. Yeah.
And thus, we have skipped the barrier, and we can go directly to Ganon's Tower, the final dungeon of the game.
Okay, this is the fastest ever enter Ganon's Tower.
However, there is another problem after the barrier skip that would make barrier skip useless had it not been able to be solved. The trials in this game require items that we have not obtained yet to beat, and thus we must skip the trials and reach the loading zone to the next part of the dungeon. Fortunately, by canceling Leaf and grabbing inside of the wall, we can then climb up and perform a frame 1 roll. And so Link's collision is not checked before he is finished climbing up. So if we roll before his collision is checked, we can then roll out of bounds and then pull Leaf and Leaf to the loading zone. And thus we have skipped the trials.
Calm down, jeez.
Now we will obtain the light arrows, which are required for beating Pup-Again. In theory, it is possible for us to skip Pup-Again in this game, and there are 2 RTA viable methods that have been discovered recently. The first is performing a zombie hover and hovering all the way up to the top of the room. However, the problem was we did not have a way to heal. You see, if you touch the ground after a zombie hover, you die and then respawn at the start of the dungeon. However, we figured out that if we could pull bomb and bomb ourselves mid-hover, we could change our angle. You see, Link's angle is locked when he zombie hovers. He can only go directly forwards. However, we discovered that if we could bomb ourselves with very precise setups, we could change Link's facing angle while zombie hovering so that he could hit a fairy in a pot. And so Link could heal from the fairy in the pot, and then proceed to beat the game since we have reached the top platform. The second method that was discovered was clipping out of bounds using hookshot to reach the top platform and performing the roll clip as you did in the trial skip. And then while out of bounds, we can then shoot through the top platform and hit a Morph with a fire arrow. and the morph, when it's set on fire, can then burn the pot lid so we can go through the warp pot and then reach the top platform, thus skipping the Puppet fight.
Find out next time. The camera is getting a little intimate right now.
When I timed both of these Puppet and skip methods, the first one with the long hover ended up not saving any time due to the fact that the zombie hover took so long to perform. Because we must obtain light arrows, we actually cannot skip getting them. In the original version, which performs this long hover, they can skip the light arrows, which allows us to also skip the quiver, because they can skip getting the light arrows or using them on Phantom again, thus negating the need to ever use the quiver.
We're just gonna item slide.
However, in this game, we cannot perform the light arrow skip because we do not have storage. In addition, there is another method, as I mentioned, which required hookshot to get onto the top platform, which has these pots with arrows and magic, and then perform a roll clip and then get out of bounds. Unfortunately, we do not have the hookshot. However, if we were to bomb Keese and then get an RNG heart drop to spawn on the top of the door, we could heal with it and then roll clip out of bounds. Because we must wait for Keese, this does not save as much time as in the longer categories that have hookshot and can get up immediately. However, it would still save around 30 to 40 seconds, but because of the RNG of the morph burning the pot lid, as well as the RNG of even getting healed by Keese, it would end up having less than a 10% chance of working. Thus, I chose not to use it in this run.
This could also kill Puppet and RTA, by the way. This could absolutely...
So instead, we have decided to fight Puppet and...
just make the category dead.
Puppet has 3 phases. The first phase involves a large structure where you must cut down the strings and then shoot the ball. Cutting down the strings usually requires boomerang, however we do not have boomerang, and even if we did, it would be slow to cut them down. So instead we must predict where the ball at the back is going to go, we must shoot it while it is moving. Fortunately, the very first shot is predicted, but all the other shots are random, and you must be able to figure out where to shoot next. I hit all of my shots. And as an excellent marksmanship, I hit all of my shots first phase. The second phase is not as scary as first phase, but it can still go wrong. The next phase, Puppet turns into a spider-like figure and then rises up in the room. We must then go to a very precise position at a precise time in order to make it so that his dropping location is thus that whenever we shoot him, he will go back up and then not go all the way up. Thus, he will have a shorter spin cycle, which saves around 5 seconds. We must also double shoot him. This is known as the Crip Shot, and I do hit it. We must also get an RNG magic drop from the Keese, because we do not have enough shots normally for the entire fight. Here was a clutch backup, because I noticed that I was not in good position to get knocked towards the tail, and thus if I had not performed that side hop onto the platform, I would have been knocked in the wrong direction, and the run likely would have been over because I would have missed the shot. In the final phase, we must finish damaging down. It is faster to damage down with Puppet because we do not have any other quick damage source, and so we must get down to near death. Luckily, I'm able to hit Puppet at the same time as Puppet hitting me, thus stunning him and allowing me to land my last shot.
RTA record. New record. The category is dead. RIP Puppet RTA world record 4403. New Puppet.
The final and very difficult trick of this run is the Morph Hover, and we will be performing it without bombs. You see, bombs are quite useful when it comes to zombie hovers because you can damage yourself down and then use that to start a hover. For a while, we did not know how to perform the zombie hover to the top platform. You see, normally in a casual playthrough, you have hookshot in this room. And so the hookshot is the intended way to reach the final platform where we must fight the final boss in the loading zone. However, because we do not have hookshot, we must find another means to gain about 10 feet of height. And since the only height glitch in this game otherwise is the zombie hover, we must use that to gain height. And then we must heal on the top platform. Early iterations of this trick use a fairy to heal. However, recently, Gymnast86 discovered that you could stab a morph and then roll it off, and then the morph will drop a heart. Normally, it would not drop a heart unless you damage it with a Master Sword, which you cannot do if it is on the top platform. However, if we make the morph latch onto us the same frame that it is destroyed by the Master Sword, it will die but then still live, and when we roll it off, when we shoot it with an arrow, it will still drop a heart, thus allowing us to use it to heal with a heart on the top platform, thus making us not die from the zombie hover. Unfortunately, the direction it rolls off of us is RNG, but I got it in a good direction to get to the top platform.
Secure it.
As I mentioned, we don't have bombs, so how will we perform the zombie hover if we can't take damage? Recently, it was discovered by Diothos in August 2020 that you could, or 2019, that you could actually shoot a morph with a fire arrow, and the fire arrow would burn the morph, and then the morph actually acts as a damage source for Link, and thus it can push him off the platform, allowing us to mash B to initiate a zombie hover. Finally, we must perform a mid-air frame-perfect bow shot in order to shoot the morph on the platform. You see, we can't shoot it before the zombie hover because the heart is on a 13-second timer and would despawn before we could reach it. And so we must hover and then drop mid-hover and pull bow and shoot the morph mid-hover, and this is frame perfect. And I get it first try. Failing this loses around 3 minutes and is run over. A nail biter here. I shoot the morph, but my distance is pretty far away, and the heart is about to despawn. Will I make it in time? And yes, I do.
Whoa, baby!
I reached the heart and healed, and then now I can enter the final fight.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Yo, thanks to the GG, Jim. Oh, my freaking lord. What is this run? What is this run? I can't. What is happening right now? I can get Zelda hearts and still 51. What is this run? I'm making history. This is the history, guys, of the 51. I'm gonna start crying. I'm gonna start crying. No, don't start crying. No one will ever play. Well, that's the minute some of the best. I don't even know what's happening anymore, bros. Let's just finish. Oh my goodness. Why do I have to wait 4.5 minutes for this for the game to end after getting the hover? Yo, thanks to good luck, audio killers. Alright, well, as long as we don't die to Ganondorf, this is the end, guys. Yeah, the first morph was really good. I still golded despite pushing the morph the entire way, which proves that you don't actually need a leaf blow. You actually don't need a leaf blow. Yeah, this base is really good. Hey, Super Dude. Yeah, Super Dude. Okay. Hey, Index. Oh gosh, that was also the first ever 46 spicy hover. Papageddon RTA is dead, by the way. Hey, Josh. I don't know what's happening right now. Thanks for the good luck. Yeah, history. We can do this. Why couldn't I submit this run to GDQ? Yo, thanks, Delighted. Isn't that like the most important time to not die to Ganondorf? You're on break. Good luck, good luck. Thanks. Will you sit down? Hello? I won't die. If I don't die, this is the 51. I shouldn't die because I know how to do the fight. Yep, muscle memory.
As you can see, I am quite nervous here. I am nervous because the final fight is done with 1 heart, since we healed out of a zombie hover with 1 heart. And thus, it is nerve-wracking because this fight, if you get hit once, you die, and thus there is no room for error for getting hit.
50 seconds ahead.
You may also notice my pace. Previously, before this run, whenever I got a PB, it would be by a mere few seconds. However, I am 50 seconds ahead, which is a first for me in being on this pace ever before. And thus, the question becomes, will he clutch it? Will he get the final fight? Or will he die? What will happen? Let's find out together.
If I get scared, like, I know what to do. I'll run away if I get scared. I can have a bad fight and I'll still 51. Just don't die. I'm not gonna go, like, super risky if something bad happens. I'm gonna be careful if something bad happens. I could get Zelda hearts. I don't have... Do I have...
And now we will see the final fight of the game.
I really shouldn't. No.
The very first phase of this fight involves Zelda shooting Ganondorf and then performing repeated jump/quick spins to deal maximum damage to him, and then talking to Zelda again, and then rolling away very quickly before we can get hit again. Luckily, the first phase goes very well. However, after this phase starts the second phase, where Ganondorf knocks Zelda down, and you must do the same thing, but without Zelda. And so we must perform a very precise parry. We move a little bit to the left and then parry Ganondorf so that when we jump/quick spin, we hit 2 hitboxes at the same time. Luckily, I get that strat perfect, but now I am very nervous to try to not get hit by Ganondorf as he is coming at me. We reflect the final arrow, and then we do the final parry, and the game is over.
Wind Waker HD any percent. In 51:34. Let's go! Holy crap, it happened! The 51, it's over. It's over. Wind Waker HD any percent is dead. It's over. Yo, Glam, thanks for the 5 gifted subs. It's over, guys. The 51 happened, and not just an ordinary 51. 51:34. Am I dreaming? Did this actually just happen? I can't be dreaming. This has to be real. This doesn't feel real. Any percent's dead. It's over.
And thus, it has happened.
It's over.
This is my Wind Waker HD any percent run in 51 minutes and 34 seconds. I hope you enjoyed watching. It has been quite a journey for me. It has been quite a journey running this game. I started running this game in November 2018 and had no idea what future was in store for me. When I started out, I was obviously not world record holder and had no hopes of even attaining the world record. But with time, I improved and learned and practiced and became a contender. In January 2020, I surpassed Ian, who had a 54:15 with my 54:03, but was not done. We kept pushing and got the first 53 soon after. Later, I had my sights on a 52-minute time, and on April 11th, 2020, I attained my first 52-minute time. But then I decided, what if we could get a 51? People laughed at me. They said there is no way. You cannot 51. It cannot be possible.
What a journey, guys.
But I decided, somehow, someway, we're going to get it.
I don't know, Josh. I don't know.
And October 6th, 2020 proved them wrong.
I don't know what just happened.
We got a 51. But not just any 51, a 51:34, which is a mid-51, which is well past my goal of a 51:59.
If I'm ever gonna
This run surprised me, because for one, my previous PB was a 52:21, and thus this was a 47-second PB, when I had previously only been PBing by about 10 seconds, and thus this was a massive, massive improvement over the previous record. But also, I played within 40 seconds of my summer best, and no one before had even played within a minute of their summer best, especially after 1,800 attempts of this game.
Hey, Ice. Excuse me.
And so, Wind Waker HD in 5134. Is this the lowest it can go? Time will have to tell.
50 seconds.
There are certain strats that I have not used in this run that I have mentioned that could possibly be used to save even more time. For one, as I mentioned, we could possibly get the submarine bottle at Bomb Island, which could possibly save around 10 to 20 seconds over manual super swimming directly to Dragon Roost. However, it adds in quite a bit of RNG in the submarine, for the enemies' movement are RNG, and you can get hit at any moment with rats. And thus, that could possibly save some time. But what else could we save time with? As I mentioned, there is another route that uses keys to heal, and then clips out of bounds and shoots a morph with a fire arrow to possibly take the warp pot up, and that would save around 30 to 40 seconds.
Hi, Ethernet, I'm sorry.
Otherwise, there are other strategies that may be possible but are heavily RNG dependent. One of them is the fairy hover that I had mentioned earlier, as it is still faster to hover with a fairy. This may save a couple of seconds, but we do not know the exact amount of time save, as it could range from 20 to 30 seconds. Otherwise, there are some theoretical routes that could become RTA viable that are not RTA viable currently.
I don't know, Slim.
Earlier this year, Bowser is Bored was in the room before Grand Staircase, and item slid against a wall and clipped out of bounds, and this was later replicated by Joash. See, if we can clip out of bounds, we can skip needing to get light arrows, which is required to spawn Phantom Ganon, which is required to get past the door in this room. However, if we can clip out of bounds, we can leave to the loading zone, and then we can enter Grand Staircase without needing the light arrows. And then, after that, we can perform the long hover version of Papa Ganon skip. Because we do not have the light arrows, we cannot shoot a morph with a flame arrow because we do not have the bow. And thus we can perform the long zombie hover and heal with a fairy at the top, and this would save around 2.5 minutes. However, unfortunately, we still have not figured out how to skip light arrows, and do not actually know how the trick works.
I can't believe this just happened.
Finally, one other trick that is task only that we have not been able to figure out yet for RTA is the leaf skip. You see, we can skip using leaf altogether in this game. The two main important uses for Leaf are for Papa Ganon to shoot a light arrow, but also in the room with Phantom Ganon before the maze, before the Grand Staircase. You see, in order to get past this room, normally you are supposed to shoot a light arrow at Phantom Ganon. However, there is a second way, but previously required Leaf in order to get a precise angle on the door frame. If we were to grab the door frame leading to Grand Staircase, we could then perform something called the Kazooie Clip, which involves holding up to retain our moving sideways speed on the doorframe, and then climb up, and then backflip into the loading zone. This has been proven to be possible without Leaf, which was discovered by me earlier in 2019 in around June. The way this is done is we parry onto the doorframe by using a circle spawn of Phantom Ganon, and then get on top of the doorframe. We then item slide over from the previous doorframe over to the other doorframe with a precise item slide setup to grab the other doorframe, and then we can perform the Kazooie Clip to again get past this room and enter Grand Staircase without the Leaf. However, the second obstacle we have not been able to figure out how to cross without task strats, the Papa Ganon skip. Because we do not have the Leaf, we cannot fight Papa Ganon because we do not have a magic meter. However, as I mentioned, we can do a hover up to the top, skipping fighting Papa Ganon without shooting any arrows. But the problem with this is that in order to drop bombs, which is mandatory for this hover, we need the Leaf. Because if we pull a bomb mid-zombie hover, we fall until we pull the Leaf. And thus, it remains a mystery. The task performs the Papa Ganon skip by hovering up and then shooting a keysmith hover with a frame-perfect bow shot. However, this is very RNG heavy, as Papa Ganon likes to knock you down, and the keys do not like to get into the correct position for the frame-perfect bow shot to work. And so, maybe one day we will figure out how to break this game more.
I don't know, Delighted. I had to
We will have to see. Only time will tell. But as of now, I will be finished running Wind Waker HD any %. I hope you have enjoyed the journey with me, and I'm glad I was able to share this moment in history with you. This game is truly a gem, and I hope many other people decide to pick up this game and share the same journey as me.
The tier 1 subscription, the 3 months, any percent is dead. Yeah, Simikins. Look forward to watching it back, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun watching this back as well. Destroy hoverless. Let's just, I wanna kinda sweep the leaderboard. That's one thing I kinda wanna do. I wanna sweep the leaderboard, except glitchless. I probably won't touch glitchless. I don't know. Probably not gonna touch glitchless, but I should get Doodlebug. I should. Will I beat Link as his hundo? I mean, if I can get a 51, 34, and any percent, of course I can beat Link as his hundo. The question is if I want to. That's the question. I absolutely can. Like I said, the question is if I want to. If I want to actually put in the time and do that. We'll see. You fixed your spacebar. Nice, audio killers. Oh, that's why you were saying all the words together. Become a professional Among Us player. What a rivalry. Hi. I did. It happened. Look at my splits. 51-34. New world record. Also, you're gonna be on YouTube now. She's gonna be on YouTube. Doggy is now a YouTube superstar. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Can we get some cute? I will be back with more speedruns of other categories of this game and possibly other games as well. But for now, I am pronouncing Wind Waker HD any percent dead, as I do not know if anyone feasibly can beat this time as of now. However, in the future, I do expect to be back at this category, grinding again when more discoveries are found, and I will be searching rigorously to find more discoveries. He's so cute. And one day, we will push this game further than anyone has ever imagined once again. I don't know why it's not showing it. Head up, dunk. Yeah, the chat feed is not showing.
Goodbye, everybody.
I'm not sure why. Thanks for good luck, Dino, but we're done. We don't need luck anymore. No, this was a gigantic PB. This was incredibly big PB. This is massive PB. Alright guys, say goodbye to YouTube. Say goodbye to YouTube. We're about to turn it off. Say bye YouTube. Bye YouTube. Bye. Bye.